Managing Your Circumstances by Ifeanyi Atueyi. How are your circumstances treating you? How are you coping with the things that happen to you every minute of the day? If your circumstances make you uncomfortable, take heart. Someone has said that 10% of life is what happens to you, while the other 90% is how you respond to what happens to you. In other words, you can be in control of your situation most of the time. Dr. Stephen R. Covey says, responsible people do not blame circumstances, conditions, or conditioning for their behavior. Their behavior is a product of their own conscious choice. Influence your circumstances rather than allowing yourself to become a victim of them. Eleanor Roosevelt says, one's philosophy is not best expressed in words. It is expressed in the choices one makes. The process never ends until we die, and the choices we make are ultimately our responsibility. I've observed that attending the best academic institution does not necessarily make you a success in life. What contributes more to your life are the choices and decisions you make while making that opportunity. What contributes more to your life and the choices and the decisions you make while having that opportunity of a good education and even after that. Some people are born in rich families, but that does not guarantee success, even financial success. A lot depends upon what that fellow did with himself and his opportunities. There are many rich people today who were born by poor parents. For such people, poor environment became a challenge to them to accumulate wealth. Some time ago, I listened to a preacher who said that he detested poverty and has sworn that he and his children will never taste poverty in their lives. He said he always told his children to think and behave as rich people, even though they could not yet afford all they needed. That confession indeed inspired me. His reason for this philosophy was that he was raised in a very wretched family. At home and in school, he lacked all the essential things other students had. Unlike this pastor, I know a young man who has, as it were, taken an oath of poverty. He believed that his misfortune started with his parents, who were so poor that they were nearly beggars all their life. The attitude of these two people and their reactions to similar circumstances were quite opposite to each other. In September 2004, I traveled to the US for the FIP Congress in New Orleans and seized the opportunity to visit some friends and relations. This time, I spent with an old friend, revealed many things to me. Arthur was a schoolmate, while Professor Madoka was a university mate. Arthur confided in me that the best thing that happened to him was the American visa lottery his wife won while they were in Nigeria. They have good jobs and their children are doing very well. One is a cardiologist and the other a computer engineer, while the third, a female, is a pharmacist. My friend invited all of them, and we had dinner one evening in a cheerful and conducive environment. By chance, I met Professor Maduka at a shopping mall, and we spent nearly 1 hour together. My friend disclosed a lot of things to me. He lamented that the greatest mistake of his life was coming to the US. Although he's still a professor at the Boston University, his American wife and their 2 children had left him. In fact, he had to leave his house for them, and in addition, he pays alimony. He told me that he was ashamed of visiting Nigeria and had no courage to visit home when his mother died in 1997. He was nearly shedding tears when he was wondering whether his father had also died. As a matter of fact, he had not been home since he left for the US in 1965. Although I sympathized with him, I could not offer any useful advice. We had delicious lunch served us at the restaurant of the shopping mall, but unfortunately, 2 of us had no appetite for the food. I always remember a one-time Prime Minister of Egypt, Joseph Jacob, popularly called JJ by his associates. As a young man, JJ served as a slave in the house of Potiphar, one of the officials of Pharaoh. And as a result of the wickedness of Potiphar's wife, JJ was thrown into the prison. You may read about JJ in Genesis from chapter 37 to 50. When he was in the prison, nobody imagined that he would one day become the second most powerful man in the entire world. I am convinced that JJ had the strong belief that his future did not depend upon the prevailing circumstances. Instead, his future depended on God and himself. I admire the courage of this young man. Even when his own brother sold him into slavery, he knew that was not the end of his future. He knew he had a destiny. Sometimes we pass through unpleasant circumstances that tend to destabilize us emotionally, physically, socially, or materially. My friend, don't surrender to these situations. Your future does not depend upon these circumstances, but on you and God. God has absolute control over everything that happens to you, and God's plans for you are for good if you are His child.